What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. Day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft is wrapped up. The New York Jets moved up. I believe it was with the Panthers, giving up our 5th rounder to pick first in the 3rd round, and we take the YAC King, wide receiver Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. And I honestly think this is a good value add here, right? A lot of the later conversations around pick 11 for us when it came to someone like tight end Brock Bowers was he's essentially the same thing, right? A yards after catch monster. What is the necessary, why take him at 11 when you can get somebody of comparable or, depending on your thoughts, even better value with a similar skill set in Malachi Corley in the 2nd or 3rd round as we officially drafted him in? So let's get into the particulars with this guy, right? Because he was somebody that I knew was going to bring an intriguing skill set, but there's a little bit more on tape that I liked than what I originally thought with him, right? He's not one of the guys I really looked into as somebody that was going to be there in the 3rd round necessarily, or that I was really targeting, right? Troy Franklin still being out there, Devontae Walker, more of a traditional wide receiver skill set, but Malachi Corley's coming in at only 22 years old, 5'11", 215 pounds. A lot of what you'll consistently see is he's built like a bowling ball, right? This is just a Geodude type guy that's been in the gym consistently, obviously, but what you love to see is the rocked up lower half. So it makes a ton of sense when you put on the film and you see the contact balance and him fighting through a lot of contact. Former 2-star cornerback recruit, didn't officially make a full conversion to wide receiver until he got to Western Kentucky. 32 career starts under his belt. I look at him, I've seen some of the pro comps out there, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, looks like a Golden Tate light to me, or heavy, I guess, if you will. But realistically, this is kind of a running back that's playing in a wide receiver that's playing in a running back body, right? He looks like a heavier, or I would envision he's a heavier, more sure-handed Michael Carter. When you take a look through the prism of contact balance, being elusive, being a little bit more aggressive in his play style, I think he brings a lot of the same attributes. He just sets a more physical tone than a guy like Michael Carter would have. Low ADOT. There's going to be a number of statistics you see out there about why this could be a bad pick. Low average depth of target is one of those, but when you take a look at what Western Kentucky really was asking of him, they wanted to get the ball to him early, often, and he was consistently trusted to be the main benefactor in that offense to be able to help that team out. Led the nation in total yards after catch and yards after catch per reception in 2022 on based across anybody that had at least 80 targets. So, I mean, it's two sides of the same coin, right? Obviously, this is a guy that didn't excel down the field. He wasn't breaking off huge chunk plays through the air, but when you got the ball in his hands, he was a chain mover. He was going to force guys to miss. He's punishing people on the other end, and this is a guy that you can envision continuing to kind of have that workhorse element where as the game gets on, he's going to continue to wear down guys that want to try to relax or cruise a little bit as the game's progressing, especially if things are getting out of hand. In 2023, for example, 89 of 115 of his targets came from the slot. So this is a guy that has a certain role, right? He's going to be competing with Xavier Gibson. And again, he's bringing that Brock Bowers element. So if you take a look at how Kentucky used him, and we'll chat about this when we get into some of his pros and or cons, a lot of it was behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of it was a little gimmicky, but they did their very best to scheme the ball into his hands early, often, and consistent. As mentioned, he is a guy that is going to bring an element of excitement to this offense. He had a touchdown every 8.2 catches over his past 2 seasons worth of playing games. And then to top it off, he made Bruce Feldman's freak list at number 81 back in 2023. So he's bringing youth. He's bringing a lot of explosive enough traits. He's bringing up a NFL ready body. Coming off his 2023 season, 12 games, 79 catches, 984 yards, which was good for 12.5 yards per catch, and 11 touchdowns. And again, anybody in the USA Conference yeah, I believe that's where he's coming from, will tell you that this was the only guy that every team was concerned about and nobody could stop him. Now, obviously, there's going to be level of competition concerns here, but when you want to talk about what's to love, he's built like a running back. He plays like a running back in the open field. Once the ball gets into his hands, he doesn't really transition into a wide receiver. He's looking to run through you, run around you, or show off the burst in his feet, right? Can create separation after catch. He's not a burner, but he is a guy that can create a little bit of that separation. He can catch something down the seam and be able to take it to the house, but it's not going to be a consistent element of his game. Strong catch radius for his frame, sub 6 foot. So you're not expecting, the stars and rainbows here with a guy like this, but he does have the wingspan. He does have the hands to be able to go out there and make things happen outside of his body. Has an offensive truck stick. When I want to talk about bringing a physical element to his game, there's a little, I don't want to put this in the same frame, but there's a little King Henry. There's a little like, not Powell, but there's a little, who was our previous running back? I'm trying to remember. The name Green is just sticking to my head. Sean Green. I don't think that's accurate, but there's a violent element to his game nonetheless. If he can't get around you and he obviously knows contact is coming, he is going to punish you 100%. Runs in stride. You can see him turn upfield with the burst. Elite agility at max speed. So a lot of what you see is once he gets the ball in his hands, is one cut, he's gone, but he's putting guys in a blender. He's mixing guys up. They're sliding everywhere. It turns into more of a hockey game for him than anything else once he has that ball. Aggressive blocker. It's something that I love. I can't say he's necessarily adequate or it's a plus part of his game, but you always love the tenacious ability, especially if it's a smaller framed guy, of someone that doesn't hesitate to have that contact. So we're not going to miss anything necessarily by having him out there on the field, and we're implementing a heavy run game, game plan. Great start-stop ability. You're going to see that in what he can do when he is not just catching something from behind the line of scrimmage or having a quick screen or cross slant route that's happening. But as mentioned, he is very, very raw, right? There's obviously a reason we targeted him, but when you take a look at having guys like a Devontae Walker that was on the board, or a Troy Franklin, for example, somebody that's more of a traditional boundary receiver, or even some of the other slot guys that would have been there, it is an interesting selection here. So there is going to be some stuff we can't do with him right out of the gate, potentially. There's a big conversation here about, did Western Kentucky just not want him to do this, or did they work around what his best skill set was and just let it be? There's not much nuance in his footwork or hand usage. So a lot of what you can see during his routes is he does sell a good head fake, but he's not going to disguise anything on a play-by-play or even quarter-by-quarter basis. A lot of the stuff can look the same. It can give way to a smart DB picking up on what he's going to try to run. Flows near traffic rather than away. So part of that physicality, part of that tenacity, him feeling like he'll never get brought down in the first even 2 tackles, is that sometimes he just happens to somehow magnetize himself to the defender, whereas he can probably get himself an extra 5 to 6 yards and then fight somebody off. So that's something I don't necessarily think you want to work out of his game, but something that we'll have to see if it lends itself the same way in the NFL. Talking about usage with Western Kentucky, a lot of screens, flats, cross routes, swings, sweep motions, drag routes, slants, a lot of work out of the backfield as a running back. So you're talking about 5 yards and behind, 5 yards to the line of scrimmage, and then anything behind is really where he's going to excel at. In year one, we'll see how much we want to incorporate stuff like that with the New York Jets, but I can see the thought process being here, even though there's minimal usage. Again, we don't know if he can be asked to do more. I can see the plan being, if we just need a spark, this is the guy that we expect to be able to bring that juice for us. Not a contested catch winner. Not to say that he can't do it, does do a good job, again, of being able to catch things outside of his frame, but that's not going to be his bread and butter. There's also some concerns with drops, and I forgot to get the percentage he's at, but he's a scheme-heavy dependent player, as mentioned. It's not a guy you're just going to throw in and say he can do A, B, C, D, E. He's a guy you're going to have to get in training camp, hope he remains healthy, add 1 or 2 tools to his game in year 1, and then hope in the offseason he can add a ton of other elements to it. So this is going to be a guy that is going to be a little bit more gadgety, I imagine, in year 1, but it's going to be an explosive element for us. Contact balance on catches isn't necessarily great, so it's interesting that he can't always pull all the traits out of his body all the time. When he has the ball in his hands, I don't think there's too many other players that do a better job of being able to either fight through contact, stay with their feet on the ground, and turn nothing into something. Or anything in that mode of talking about a great guy with the ball in his hands, a playmaker, if you will. When he's in the air, if he has to catch outside his body, stuff like that, a lot of those things go away pretty instantly. And I just think that's more of the inexperience of him playing wide receiver. And then you talk about his change of direction abilities, a little inconsistent. Again, kind of flows into what I was saying. If he already has the ball in his hands versus if he's going out there and trying to run routes, etc. And ultimately, I'm extremely excited. I think this is a huge plus for us. We still may double down on wide receivers, still other moves that we can make, but I think there's a solid enough vision and role with a guy like Malachi Corley. And if he does continue along the trajectory, not saying he's a Deebo Samuel, but if I don't think he does any worse than a guy like Golden Tate, if we want to go back to his pro comp. Consistent 700 to 800 yard guy. He's going to bring 1 or 2 big plays consistently for you on a game by game basis, and he'll either go anywhere from superstar in the NFL to a guy that is a underappreciated asset in any wide receiver room. So great job for the Jets here in the 3rd round. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you again. Peace.